Hey guys, I am Holly. Welcome to the channel if you're new, and if you're returning, thank you for coming to see another video. Today I'm giving you my full recap of the second 100-mile run I have now completed. Did it a week ago in Arizona. I'm gonna give you the full rundown of how it went, and I'm gonna finish the video with really clear takeaways, yeses and nos, for what you can apply to your 100-mile race if you consider doing one in the future. I learned a lot from this one that I did not learn from the first one, so hoping to give you guys that kind of info to make you feel more prepared. When I did my first 100-miler, I didn't feel like there was enough content out there to reference, and I'm hoping that me and other creators can really spearhead the movement to get you guys prepared and really know what to expect going in so that we can avoid the DNF happening at all. Quick disclaimer, guys, on this video, I did not film this race. I contemplated doing it. In my first 100, I filmed the whole thing. I'm gonna link it here so you guys have it. But this was something I really had to focus on. Every bit of this race needed my attention, and adding the camera piece to it, filming myself, wasn't gonna happen. So I just wanna say that here, but if you do wanna watch me run 100 miles, watch that other video. Otherwise, this will just be a nice sit and chat recap that I can definitely follow up answering any other questions. So the race that I did was the Javelina Jundred in Scottsdale, Arizona in McDowell Mountain Regional Park. So the whole race happens in this park. End of October, it is the desert, it is definitely dry, and it is definitely hot. So that is the setup every year at Javelina Jundred. This race is actually known for being something that's more beginner friendly than some of the other 100-milers in the US. And I have a few thoughts on that. I think in a lot of ways it makes sense that people say that, and in other ways it really doesn't. But I think the main thing that helps people finish this race is the fact that it's a loop system. You are constantly coming back to your crew tent, your main setup. There's a lot of energy and a lot of people there that really helps carry you through. So having that system to keep checking back and getting the motivation to go back out versus being in sort of no man's land on one huge mountain loop can be really motivating, I think, and can actually make you feel closer and closer to the finish. That being said, this race is in the desert and there is not an ounce of shade the entire time. So most of my prep for this race was considering how hot it was going to be. I had a whole game plan going into this race of how I was going to manage the heat and that direct sunlight. I had UV sleeves, I had hat, sunglasses, of course, handkerchief that I would roll ice into. Path Projects has a great video on YouTube about it, and that's actually the handkerchief I ordered and used, and it was great. Tied it around my neck, always refilling that with ice at every aid station. Had that system in place, and it was absolutely perfect for me beating the heat. But if you are not familiar with running in the heat, or you don't do it often, or if the summer you were mostly inside on the treadmill, this would not be the race for you. You really need to know what's coming with the heat, and you have to have a game plan for when things get tough. This is a 5-loop race, so you're gonna do a 22-mile loop to start, and then all the remaining loops will be just under 20 miles, all combining to give you 100. That first loop, in the way that this terrain is set up, you basically go up for the first half of the loop and come down for the second half, more or less. There's some flats in there as well, and of course some downs and some ups, you know, mixed into the two sides. But in general, you're going up for 10.5 and then down to finish. 3 main aid stations, and I think they're absolutely perfectly placed in this race. They're exactly where you need them, and they are so nicely set up with the nicest people, the best stuff. I can't even talk about the aid stations. They were incredible. Constant support. I mean, just through the very end, they were really there for us, and it felt really cool. They kept switching out the foods with the time of day. So you would have like dinner at dinner, like burger patties, pizza, little mini tortilla roll-ups. All the stuff that they would have all day was pickles, potatoes. I'll talk more about what I ate, but had everything switched out. In the mornings, there was breakfast. Like, just, it was awesome. So you have your first aid station at 4.5 miles in. You're climbing up, and then you continue climbing up, and at 10.5 is where you hit like the peak of the loop, and then you'll start winding your way down. So it's kind of nicely broken up in that way. You know you have a bunch of up, and then you know you have a bunch of down. And I say a bunch of up, but in grand scheme of trail races, this is not a steep course, but it's just enough that it is annoying. And there's a lot of rocks that are loose, and that gets annoying because you're tripping over them, or you're not picking up your feet, or you're not managing where your weight is, especially when you're tired. So you do have to keep your wits about you. But in general, things are broken up in a way that it feels like it's changing enough to keep you alert. So 4.5, when you get up to 10.5, and then you come down, there's one more about 5.5 on the way down. You hit another aid station, and then you come into the headquarters. And it's just kind of a great breakup of that. First loop was basically runnable. You start out with so many people. I think there was like 800 of us that started the race, or 800 something that started. There was a lot of elites there. It was really cool. Courtney DeWalter, Devin Yanko, there were so many names, that Billy Yang, all these people were there. But it was really cool. There was 100K racers and there was 100 milers. And there was a 6 a.m. start and a 6:30 start. 6:30 was going to be anyone not trying to attempt sub 24. And that was definitely me. My first 100, I broke 24 hours, but I was on a much flatter pavement course in not direct, really hot desert sunlight. So I knew this probably wasn't going to be a 24-hour race. All that being said, you start, and all the people around you kind of determine your run-walk system at the beginning. You're kind of just doing what the group's doing, but it feels very doable, and I think everyone around me was prepared enough to know walk early, walk often is a non-negotiable. So I was really going off of a lot of other people's decisions, but we were moving quick. I almost did my first loop an hour faster than I thought I was going to. But I was feeling good, and as I came in from the first loop, the sun was really, really starting to come up, and it was really about to get to be the hottest part of the day. So I knew that all my systems in place for heat were gonna really have to be proving to work. I was gonna have to do everything executed perfectly, and as always, stay on top of the hydration, electrolytes, without fail. No room to get tired and get lazy. So as I came in from the first loop, I was expecting to see my 2 pacers, one of them being my boyfriend, my sister was gonna be there, and then my dad and uncle. My dad and uncle, by some miracle, or just their sheer craziness, they stayed out there in the crew tent the entire time I was racing, which was insane. It was just a 10 by 10 covering. It wasn't actual tent or anything, and they sat there and they waited. Every time I came through, they were incredible. But I was gonna see my sister and pacers after that first loop, and that would be like kind of my first check-in with everybody. I was really excited to see them. They missed me by 5 minutes, even through all of my changes and everything. The parking situation at this race this year was horrendous, and I actually think a lot of people in the first wave start probably were late to start the race, which really sucks. They knew how many people were racing. I guess it's hard to anticipate the growth every year of how many cars that's gonna mean and when they show up, but it was kind of a mess. So I'm really hoping they do a better job next year. I'm sure they will. Otherwise, it's put on super well. Like, it could not be better executed as a race, I think, for that many people. But parking was bad, missed them, that really sucked. And as I go into my second lap, which I knew was just gonna be the hottest, worst time, this was probably around noon-ish that I was starting to embark on that or maybe just before noon. I had a moment of just sheer disappointment in myself and doubt in myself. I just was feeling like I had Everest to go. And it was really weird because I never approach races this way, and I usually enjoy the moments in between, but there's something about going up, being in the direct sunlight, and feeling like you're so far from your goal that you just get worn down. And I think I had this moment of like, you don't have to do this. And that is really, really rare for me. And I think you guys see in my videos, like, I genuinely like being out there doing this, but there was something feeling very defeating about the whole moment. I just felt alone. I felt like I was so far from being being with my pacers and getting to the final stretch of the race. It just felt so far away. And that was a really good example of one foot in front of the other. You are still traveling forward. You are still knocking mileage off. Who cares what it looks like right now, but get through this point of doubt and feeling like shit, and you will get through to a side where you're actually feeling really in control and really good. And it's exactly what happened. It always does happen that way. And I just wanted to reiterate to you guys, you cannot let yourself get in the way by assuming you know what's going to happen. And it's just so crazy to watch that play out in any distance race and any life challenge. Keep moving forward in whatever way you can. Do what you need to do, tiny little fixes here and there. For example, a guy offered me some Advil and I realized I had forgotten to get some at my crew stop. And I took some and I actually just felt like that was a miracle at the right time. My head was hurting from just squinting from the sun and everything, and I felt like that was just a pick-me-up that I needed. Don't take drugs from strangers, but I somehow trusted this guy. Anyway, I get through that moment of doubt, and I get through, and I'm just like, just get to the aid station, just get to the next aid station. And I started to find myself again and realize I was actually really well prepared for this race. All I did all summer was run outside in heat and humidity in Nashville. this is no humidity, this race environment. Yes, tons of sun, and yes, it was hot, but it wasn't the pain and suffering of a Nashville summer. And I had to keep having context with that. So that was really helpful to get through that moment in the second lap. Getting through that, I knew, okay, when I come through the end of this lap, and I did do a lot more walking in that second one too, because I realized running the whole thing practically in that first lap, little walk breaks, but mostly running, wasn't going to be sustainable and was not going to set me up to feel my best towards the end. I was really, really on top of my eating. I just tried to keep my gels going. Every 30 to 45 minutes, I was having a gel or something I had with me. I had those Stroop waffles. I was taking my salt, you know, the shakes I showed you guys a million times, every 30 to 40 minutes. Tons of water, tons of electrolytes. You know, I had them put Gatorade. I was drinking a lot of Roctane, which had some caffeine in it, which was awesome. I really like that Summit tea with the Roctane. It's amazing. And I just kept that going. And then I would have little bites at the aid stations to kind of supplement my gel routine, at least for the first 2 laps. So I had boiled potatoes, which were amazing. I had pickles. I had some fruit here and there, watermelon, little chunks of bananas, stuff like that. And then I started working in heavier foods as time went on because I felt myself getting more hungry. But I really was pacing well in those first 2 laps. As I come down out of the end of the second lap, I'm like, this is where it gets real, because this next lap is going to be about another hour and a half of sun, and then you are in the dark by yourself for a good 3 hours, probably at least. To give you guys context, I had kind of planned for 5 hours a loop, give or take, and I was pretty freaking spot on, at least for the first 3 laps. It was pretty wild. I was basically spot on. With even a little leeway, I was a little faster than that. But you know, obviously time goes on and things change, but I never went over 6 hours per lap, which was just a nice accomplishment for me. I felt like I was staying within what I had planned for. Coming down on the second one, I'm like, okay, this third loop is going to be, the headlamp starts, we start in the night, you're going to be tired, the sun's going to set and all of that, but this is your last one by yourself. Then you get your pacers and they're going to help so much. It was going to be like the best boost ever. Just get through this third lap. So I have a lot of trouble, I had this in my first one too, with headlamps. They make me nauseous. The bouncing of the light just makes me feel like shit. I just feel like I get immediate nausea and instability and my balance isn't good. So what I would do is either tie it to my pack or I would hold it around my wrist and just direct the light, and it felt like I wasn't looking directly at where it was coming down on it. I don't even know why it was different, but it was. I did that, and then there were enough people around me and a full moon that I could see well enough the way that it was. One huge pick-me-up in the third lap was I was at an aid station shortly after the sunset, and I had a guy, you know, he was like, hey, Holly, and I didn't know him, and it was one of you guys. So it was so awesome to meet one of my YouTube subscribers out there in the wild running this thing, and that was just a huge boost for me because it was like reminding me, we all do this to inspire each other, and I give you guys info from what I've learned to hopefully give you a 100-mile finish or give you your first marathon finish or 5K, whatever it is. And it was really cool at that moment. I felt like I really needed it. So it was awesome meeting you, and that was just super cool. We took a photo together and then continued on. I come down through the end of my third lap. I'm like really ready to go. At this point, I'm starting to actually hurt. My feet and my joints, everything is starting to feel like heavy, kind of. And I had to remind myself, the really nice thing about this course is that, yes, I was coming down that whole last bit. I'm going to get to switch muscle groups again going up, and I'm going to have a distraction of a pacer. So picked up my pacer, made some changes. I decided to leave shorts for the whole night. I took the UV sleeves off. I think I tied a shell around my waist. No. I changed to a long sleeve smart wool. That's what I did. Took the hat off, ditched the glasses. That was nice to lose some of that stuff and lose the handkerchief. And then I obviously had the headlamp and yeah, just the long sleeve. And I felt like I would be good to go. It was pretty moderate temperatures the whole time. I really only got cold towards the end of the race. I'll talk about that in my fifth lap, but everything else was totally fine. And it was great. Picked up my first pacer. She's awesome, super motivating. The beginning was like, can you just tell me stories or tell me about the day, and I can kind of just like be distracted. Then we played some games, like alphabet games. We would talk about, you know, favorite thing that starts with A and then favorite thing that starts with B and, you know, whatever, just random stuff. My brain wasn't even working, but it was really helpful. And most of all, she helped me figure out a system to walk and run on that was going to keep us moving at a pace I wanted to be going at, which is the whole point of a pacer. You want to keep moving forward in a strong thought about way when you can't do the thinking anymore. So we ended up, especially on the way down, doing an 8-minute run, 4-minute walk alternated. And that was perfect. Even when I didn't want to run for the 8 minutes, I could shuffle through it knowing we had the walk coming up. We worked on nutrition. We switched in some new foods. I was eating ramen noodles at certain aid stations, which really helped. I ate a plain burger patty at one of the aid stations. I felt like I was really managing my food well. Again, a little bit dizzy with the headlight, but because she had hers, I could kind of not really worry about mine as much. Yeah, we just had like a nice time. I felt like I had a new system for doing this. And I got in my head a little bit towards the end of just thinking, oh my God, this isn't the last time. I have another one of these, Jesus. But it was still so much better than being by myself. And the true mark of a good pacer is you feel like you're being taken care of and pulled through, and they're helping you stay on track. So we get through the 4th lap, come in, it's about, God, I want to say it was around 4 a.m. maybe when I was picking up my last pacer, my boyfriend, he paced me, and made my final changes. We knew the sun was going to come back up, so I had my glasses again. I think we did another spray of sunscreen and, you know, one last pat on the back, like, go get them, let's finish this thing. And we embarked on the 5th lap. At this point, I think I was definitely just feeling sorry for myself on the way up, just really tired and exhausted, but again, trying to not get so in my thoughts about what it meant to be at this mile and this mile and this mile. Just keep working your way up. The really cool thing about the final lap in this race is it's the last time you're going to see each aid station, which is amazing. At this point, I was really on top of nutrition, electrolytes, hydration still. Everything was feeling good. I almost think I overdid it with the salt, but I never cramped once. I had one tiny little pull on my calf that I thought was going to start, and it really didn't turn into anything. So no cramps, which was amazing. Actually, I think peed 4 times throughout the race, which was great. I obviously was having things move through, but I felt like really, really well executed on that front. I didn't feel like I got too lazy and gave up on anything. Towards the end, I almost got lazy with water when it was dark. You know, I was just like, ugh, whatever. But I reminded myself, keep it going, keep it going. One of the worst things about this whole race is that when the sun comes back up and the heat comes back into your life, that is so demoralizing. I think that's something I did not experience in my first race because I finished in the dark. This one, the sun fully came back up, and I was hurting. And it was one of those things where I just felt really annoyed by every little thing. I was hallucinating a little bit. I was seeing some things in the desert that weren't even there. But he did such a great job, again, at giving me a run-walk strategy, helping remind me to eat and drink and keep it up. And you cannot give up. Even if we have 10 miles left, you got to stay with it. And it was really important that we did that. On our way down, it was great. You know, I got breakfast at one of the aid stations. We had like amazing bacon, and I don't even know what else we had. And we're coming back down, and I told him, I want you to create a run-walk strategy that I don't even think about. I'm not even going to tell you what I want to do. But I started to realize we might be able to break 27 hours, which was just a fun thing that I noticed. And he kept checking in. Do you still want to hit this? Do you still want to hit this? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So he was like, got it. We got to stay on what I'm going to tell you to do. And it was so great because I felt like I was being coached, and my whole job is to coach you guys and my clients. So for me to get a coach, it just felt so nice. But having that support and having that pacer system really helped me out and make me feel like I was going to be in control even when my mind didn't think I was. Really, really carried me to the finish. It's so incredible what any little piece of help can do when you're really that tired. Every little muscle in my body hurt. My feet were screaming. My shoulders from having a pack on were so tight, so tired. And the difference in this race versus my first one, I had to be focused on the trail the entire time. Could never take your eyes off of it or you're going to trip. So that was really challenging compared to the first one. You're always kind of down at an angle. And even to this day, a week later, my neck is still a little bit sore from that. So when all that's going on and walking hurts and running hurts, but you know you can keep running and you know you can keep moving forward, it is just really inspiring. And even though the sun was blazing down, I was having him block for me on my left ear because the sun was just beating down. It just felt like, okay, we're so freaking close to this. We're so, so close. So we came up on the last, the last round of headquarters. And when you get into the headquarters, you almost have another quarter mile, because the way they had you do it was you come in, do a big lap around, you would come to the finish, do a turnaround, and that would chip you for the, saying you did that loop and go back. So obviously on the last one, you're just coming through the finish, but it's a good loop before you come through it. And he was telling me, pick it up a little bit, because to get around this whole thing, if you want to bring 27 hours, anyway, get through the finish. I think I was at 27 hours, 14 seconds was my official time. 14 is my lucky number, so I will take it. But it was insane coming through that finish. It felt so much more earned than the first time I did it, even though I know that it wasn't. I think there was so much newness to the first time of doing the 100 that it was so much excitement and adrenaline carrying you through in that one. This was like, am I executing with the plan that I wanted to use? Is everything that I did to prepare paying off? And to be honest with you guys, it really felt like I couldn't have done any more to prepare. As I finish this video with kind of the tips of do this, don't do this, whatever, you'll kind of see what I mean. But I honestly came through feeling so freaking accomplished that I got myself through that finish. And it was just so amazing. When I come through, I'm like, can't even see straight, because we had actually run the last 10 minutes probably completely. Hands on my knees, my dad's trying to get photos, and I'm just like all over the place. I don't even remember like what I said at the finish, but finally all finishing up, we go sit down, and after about 10 minutes of sitting, my body just totally froze. It was like the sun was up and everything, but my body temperature, as I started to come down, I just got major chills, and I felt like my legs completely locked up. Tried to stand up to go get in the car, and I freaked myself out. It felt like I was like paralyzed. It was just so weird. Couldn't stand on my own and couldn't like take a step forward. So they kind of helped me through. I didn't think it was like dangerous dehydration or anything like that, because I really had stayed on top of it, but it was just total fatigue and your body going from moving for 27 hours to not. So I always advise people, keep moving through the finish, whatever. And I didn't take my own advice. I just plopped, and I think I would have done that differently. But immediately went to the hotel, and I just had to sleep right then. Couldn't even do anything, couldn't eat. I just had to sleep. And then when I woke up from that, after a few hours, I was able to like eat something, start to move my legs around and whatever. Let me do some takeaways from this experience and some things to go by, and then I'll just tell you how my recovery went over the last week. But takeaways, things you should do for your 100. You should practice being in your element of working out when you're not 100% recovered. I think we're always taught to do things when we're recovered, and then we go again and we take the rest in between, and that's all really smart. But if you're gonna be doing something really long, you have to know what it feels like to move on really tired, really stiff legs. And that's the biggest thing I focused on over the last year and a half. It was constantly clients workout or clients, whatever, back to back to back to back. I know we don't have the luxury of hours of a day being on our feet, but instead of doing a super long run on the weekends, I advise doing 2 back-to-back runs. Break that up into morning and night, or Saturday and Sunday you're going to go out there and do it. But practicing what it's like to motivate yourself through those moments of, gosh, I don't feel great, but I know I have to keep forward anyway. Additionally, you don't know anything about how you're going to react to climate or conditions of a race unless you practice something as close as possible to it. If you've got a lot of climbing in your race, you have to practice a lot of climbing. And duh, that sounds like, of course, Holly, but it has to be in a way that you're familiar with so that you're not freaked out in the race. It's amazing what can creep in when you're tired and starting to doubt yourself. It feeds on itself. It can be the reason you quit. I heard of a lot of people giving up in the middle. I think 500 something of us finished out of the 800 something. So this is a very common race for people to not finish. My dad told me about tents next to us. They were talking the guy into it. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And he never went out and did the 4th lap, So you just have to practice being in that dead zone where you don't love how you feel, but you know that you'll have a way to get out of it, because that's the only way to keep moving forward through that race. Nutrition, same thing. You want to know what sits right, what doesn't. That's a lot of trial and error. But if you have a background layer of things sit well with you, so gels you trust, chews you trust, whatever, foods, sandwiches, whatever you're going to do, peanut butter, that will always sit relatively well with you, that you can keep going in the background and then add and sprinkle into that, you'll be good. Never ever getting lazy with your water and electrolytes. No matter how you feel, it has to be a high priority. You don't deserve the next mile if you're not giving it back to your body, basically. And otherwise, I ran this race probably 15 pounds heavier than I was at my first one. And I think it's basically all muscle. I was doing a lot less strength training at the time of my first one, and I was doing a lot more at the time of this one. And while it added weight, I do attribute my muscle and my just general fitness and really doing a lot of HIIT classes and things to keep my cardio level really high, that I feel like that's why I've had a very easy time recovering. To be honest, the fact that I definitely got slower through the race, but not by that much, really says a lot. That's a testament to fitness. I'm not by any means a mountain goat racing through this race, but I'm steady and I'm consistent. And in the week after, I mean, I could have done a run probably 3 days after the race, whereas my first one, I couldn't even walk for about 4 days without crutches. So pavement was part of that for sure, but having the muscle and the support around my joints this time around and just the fitness level, I really felt like contributed to a much better recovery. My heart rate feels better. I'm back to working out and running now, and we're barely a week out from it. It's just, I think I attribute a lot of what I did leading up to recovering so much quicker. So it might feel like the only thing that's important is getting through the finish line, but I really think that if you can come down from that in a really quick, seamless way, that's a true testament to your fitness and how well you prepared. So that's all the stuff that went well. The stuff that did not go well, I would say that it's a very interesting sport to do if it's for anyone else but yourself. I am someone who I love to do this to inspire myself and to inspire others, and I think my dad is a big reason I do a lot of my ultra marathons. He got me into this sport. He's done a lot of Ironmans and stuff like that and a lot of races with me. But you cannot do something this hard for anyone but yourself, and I really realized this during this race. You can't do it for validation. You can't do it to feel like people are impressed by you or they like you more or whatever. This is that hard that if it's not for you and proving to yourself that you have the strength mentally and physically to get through it, it's not gonna feel like something you can finish, and it's not gonna feel as rewarding to get through. So if that's one piece of advice, if any of you guys are getting coerced into doing something like this, whether it's for, achievement purposes or to impress someone or whatever, I really encourage you to look within. What would actually make you feel good about finishing? Will this be that important to you and you alone? That's one thing I think I struggled with in this, was just, I think at times I was doing this not for myself. Second piece, I really think with the chafing and blisters and that type of thing, I taped my feet really well. I really didn't have too many blisters overall. I just don't understand how there's not a product yet that completely prevents chafing in long distance running. It's just kind of crazy. We have the runner's lube and the Glide, but in heat and sweaty conditions and constant temperature changes, it's just kind of wild that we deal with it still. With all the products out there, I just find that like everybody has some version of a problem with this. And I still had some big blisters on my toes, and I had rubbing on my back. We had to keep retaping with my sports bra and stuff in the pack. And that's just really frustrating. I think that's something that I don't know what else I could have done, but I do think it needs to be solved. Other than that, I guess, really maybe adding a little bit more speedier hill work to practice hiking faster up the uphills might have cut off 30 minutes or so of my time, but again, I wasn't super concerned with that. But if you are trying to hit a certain time or keep a certain pace or whatever when you go do one of these races, a lot of people are going for 24-hour finish or less. You need to practice how fast you can hike, because you can't use those walks as your downtime. And I think with my pacers, I definitely did a good job of keeping it up, but sometimes by yourself, you can get a little lazy there. So that might have been one thing. But I don't have a ton of regrets. In my first video of my first 100, you guys can watch that, I documented the whole thing. I did not do that this time. I had to really be present for this race. There was so much going on. I had to give everything to it, but you can watch in that one some areas where I hit some super low points. But in general, I think it's you and your mind against the world when it comes to this type of thing. And if you know how to talk to yourself in low moments and you really have worked on building your confidence, whether that's through meditating or going through tough life experiences or whatever, you can apply that to any piece of the race and you can get through it. I don't think I made any catastrophic mistakes this time around, but I know that people who deal with stomach issues, not being able to keep food down or water down or that kind of thing, or just seeing what happens, you really don't have room for that in a race like this. You have to really know yourself well. So I think that's basically everything. I really, really enjoyed doing this. I can't believe I have now run 200-mile races. It's crazy to me. But I'm never going to have those taken away from me. That is something that I can be proud of forever and I can always reference and look back on. I've had trouble processing this one because it was so much going on, but I'm happy with it. And I am so happy to know that I could get through that and recover. And I ran this morning and I ran yesterday and it's just so crazy. So I hope this inspired some of you guys, or at least gave you some reference points if you're getting ready to do 100 or thinking about it. I know you can do it. It is just so crazy to think you can and then watch yourself do it. But I wish that for every single one of you who wants to do it, because it's freaking incredible. And being around people doing it next to you is just so amazing. And one of the things is so rare in the world. I think that's what I'm gonna leave you guys with today. If you have questions or want me to do a follow-up, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer specific questions we'll definitely cover in the next Q&A on the channel. But I love you guys. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. I have all kinds of content, not just 100-mile stuff, and vlogs and all that kind of stuff, and more stuff coming. Subscribe to Patreon too if you haven't yet and you want some follow-along workouts. I love you guys. I will see you so soon. Bye.